Nicole, why don't you explain the theme of this technology lab?
Thanks, Ted. Yes, the focus of this lab is the Digital Employee Experience, or DEX. We don't usually use acronyms, but as Digital Employee Experience is such a mouthful, we use the initials today. As we researched the topic and put the program together, we found the metaphor of looking through different lenses very helpful, as when people talk about DEX, what they focus on very much depends on their perspective. Therefore, we approached our theme, DEX in transition, from multiple perspectives, so you can decide which lenses make the most sense for your organization. Think of these 2 days as a journey we'll take together, exploring the complexity of the digital employee experience and seeking ways that you can use these differing perspectives to improve it in your own workplace. Obviously, we're all looking at work from the perspective of adjustments due to COVID-19. Some organizations are in the workplace, others are working from home, and many are in a hybrid of the two or in transition. So first of all, let's take a quick look at the agenda. Ted, have you got that?
Sure. I'm really excited about our program for the next 2 days. We've got diverse expert viewpoints to share with you, a range of experienced digital workplace practitioners with perspectives and stories to inspire you and challenge your thinking, and lots of time for you to engage with each other directly and learn one-on-one. I've been involved in putting together conferences for about 2 decades now, and our program for these 2 days has me as stoked as any other I've been part of. Nicole, let's get going. Let's meet our first speaker.
Okay, I put the agenda in the chat for everybody, so if you've not got that or if you've not looked at it for a little while, it's in there so you can access it there. So first of all, we're going to get started with the identify section of this lab by introducing Kevin Olp. He's our DWG consultant and benchmarking product manager. Kevin has recently published a research report for DWG entitled Employee Experience, How Digital Workplace Teams Can Enhance the Employee Journey. We asked Kevin to give us an overview of this research and explain the 6 elements of employee experience he identified in the report. If you have any questions for Kevin as he goes along, please ask them in the chat as we'll have time for them after his presentation. So Kevin, can you share your presentation and tell us what you found? It's always a little while as you switch over.
Kevin, you're on mute.
How many times have we all heard that over the last few months?
Kevin, are you right there? It's just share screen at the
bottom. I'm right here.
Perfect, great.
How's everyone doing today? I am in the process of sharing my entire screen. Hold on here. And there we go.
There we go. Perfect.
Let me know,
Thanks,
Rose,
Kevin.
when you see my screen.
Yeah, it looks good, Kevin.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Olp. I'm with Digital Workplace Group. And my role within Digital Workplace Group is I am the benchmarking product manager. I also do a little bit of research for the Digital Workplace Group as well. In particular, I've done a piece called The Employee Experience, How Digital Workplace Teams Can Enhance the Employee Journey. So it really looks at that intersection between employee experience and ultimately the journey that we all take as employees. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why Ted asked me to participate today with this program, is because it really serves to set some context around digital employee experience. You start with employee experience as well. Employee experience has actually been around as long as there have been employees and employers. And that really, what we're going to do is do a quick run through history, and we'll talk a little bit about the 6 elements of employee experience. So let's go ahead and start off with the Craftsman Period, the age of utility. Before the Industrial Revolution, most employee-employer relationships were actually very, very intimate in nature. In many cases, it was someone in a particular community who had a particular skill, like a blacksmith, who would form horseshoes and bridles for horses. And if a blacksmith became particularly good at his craft, he would take on an apprentice, the first employee. The apprentice would get paid a small amount, maybe room and board. And in addition to that, the apprentice would gain the skills that the craftsman had the ability to share. Bottom line, working conditions were very, very personal in nature. They did a lot of one-on-one. Worker arrangements were informal. And really the employer-employee contract was focused as much on passing skills from generation to generation as it was on pay and employee experience. What happened next? Well, the mobilization of the workforce happened. People started migrating to central cities, and the emphasis shifted to the Industrial Revolution and the age of productivity. During this period of time, factories came into being, and in those factories, people worked in large numbers. The pay was better than what they experienced in previous generations, and it allowed the burgeoning middle class to begin to generate some wealth. But workforce expectations were low. Paycheck and job security were what was expected. They learned to accept long hours and unsafe working conditions. And the employee-employer contract really focused on how the employee could deliver more productivity to the employer. This led ultimately to increasing worker dissatisfaction and ultimately the labor movement, unionization, and the establishment of workforce protection laws. Fast forward to the next stage, the information age. The age of engagement. During this period of time, you had technology starting to make a real impact into the world. And so as a result, it's a changing nature of work. There's more collaboration. Work is more complex. And so there begins to be more focus on how people interact and work with each other. This, at the time, came into a really cool kind of development, which was open concept workspaces that still offered you an opportunity to have some personal space and private area, also known to the rest of us as cubicles. They basically what they enabled people to collaborate with each other, start to use technology, and be able to still maintain some individuality and personalization. Work-life balances really started to be called to the front during the 1990s and the 2000s. And the employee-employer contract focused on trying to satisfy that growing employee base to be able to retain the best employees. Workforce satisfaction and engagement programs were really big in organizations during this period. And it also, significant to us, was the time frame when intranets and digital workplaces began to emerge to provide access to the right digital tools at the right time. So what's next? Well, we're starting to call this the age of employee experience. So really looking at the entire journey of the employee from onboarding all the way through to offboarding and what that experience is. And if you look at that, it's really driven by a couple of factors. In today's world, we've got an erosion of the traditional employer and employee relationships. The gig economy means that people might have more than one job, and they definitely aren't necessarily just working in the office. This photo is the first one that when you look at it, it doesn't necessarily look like a traditional workplace. It could be a coffee shop. It could be someone's backyard, because we can work from anywhere, as many of us are doing today and joining this particular program. Some other factors that are coming into play are artificial intelligence, eliminating some of the repetitive administrative work, allowing people to focus on deeper, more strategic work. And the way that people are choosing jobs is changing as well. It's no longer purely a benefits and salary and security kind of negotiation and thought process, but employees are attracted to workplaces that align with their values and provide a place that supports growth and tools to help you do the job well. So what are the outcomes? Well, we don't know yet because this has just begun. But in Digital Workplace Group's recent report, The Nature of Work, Shimmer Janes outlines a possible future where we see migration towards a more natural workplace, really focusing on the employee and the flexibility and the choice and that they have in order to be able to do work where they want and when they want, and have the best tools available so that they can do their best work. Very different from the factories of the early 20th century. So with that, companies are increasingly focusing on employee experience as one of those things that are critical to the attraction, retention, and really not only of workforce, but also just attaining the goals that the organizational has. Barry Chignell in 2017 outlined 6 elements of a winning employee experience that we thought were pretty spot on. And they were first impressions, what happens when I'm onboarding, purpose, culture, trust, clarity, and teamwork. So let's take a look at each of those one by one as a way to be able to format ourselves for the conversations that we're going to be having today. Under first impressions, really, it's what happens during recruiting and onboarding. Now, Glassdoor says strong onboarding increases retention by 82% and productivity by 70% once someone is fully onboarded, which is something we can all get behind. But anyone who's hired an employee or has owned a business and had to recruit staff knows that new employees' needs can be time intensive. And it's frustrating for the employee to have to wait for answers. So at the general services, I'm going to direct you to the right-hand side of the screen here. This is an example from the General Services Administration of the federal government. And they have on board Mrs. Landingham, who helps these new employees to be able to become onboarded. Mrs. Landingham covers the administrative tasks of onboarding and walks new employees through via text the things that they have to do to be able to get themselves situated in order to be able to become productive members of the organization quickly. In addition, anytime, 24/7, new employees can text Mrs. Landingham, and she will go ahead and she'll answer those questions and make sure that no one is ever left without an answer to their question. The interesting thing about Mrs. Landingham is that she doesn't exist. She's a chatbot. Like many organizations, the GSI and federal government have implemented a chatbot in order to be able to help with these administrative tasks so that the new employee's manager can spend more time helping that employee with the more complex issues that deal directly with the job. That's just one of the 6. The second 6 is purpose. I'm going to talk a little bit about Patagonia. Patagonia, outdoor firm. They make a lot of great stuff to help us be able to do the things we love to outdoors. Their purpose stated is Patagonia is in the business of saving our home planet. Really big thinking, right? And the cool thing about it is that the way that they make that a reality is that they say if we provide great tools and great recreational outerwear for our customers to be able to go out and enjoy nature, they're going to be more passionate in wanting to preserve the environment. And so we really feel like we have a role in saving our home planet. Now think about 2 things here. First of all, think about what we talked about in today's employees, looking for a place where their purpose matches the purpose of the organization they work with. Bingo, they've got a big draw there. And then secondly, think of yourself as a digital experience practitioner. Think of the possibilities and the impact a digital workplace can have in reducing greenhouse emissions, reducing the need for travel, even commuting. There's a way to be able to really play right into that kind of purpose. The big piece here for digital workplace practitioners is your purpose for your digital workplace needs to support and align with the company's purpose and with culture. If purpose is the reason we get out of bed every day and go to work, culture defines how we operate and how we interact with each other as we get there. Digital workplace strategy is aligned to culture, not the other way around. One way companies do this is through the use of personas. This is an example from the healthcare industry, where every development within their digital platform and their digital workplace is measured against those personas of different people throughout the organization and how they'll use it and how it aligns with culture. In this case, in the way that this healthcare organization onboards, does ongoing communication, and collaborates. Trust. Trust builds engagement, satisfaction, higher productivity. All things both employers and employees want. This is a Harvard, on the right-hand side, a Harvard Business Review study that shows in the areas of stress, more energy, higher productivity, fewer sick days, more engagement, less burnout, all of these good things that trust with their employer builds. The role of the digital workplace in trust is in all of the great tools that it gives us to be able to build deeper relationships between the organization and its leadership and its front line, whether it be video, comment, chat, all things that increase the accessibility of leadership with the front line and provides opportunities for trusting relationships to be built. Clarity. Everyone in their organization, a big part of their employee experience is, do I have clarity in what my organization is trying to accomplish, how we're trying to get to our purpose, what's our goal, what's our strategy, what's our step-by-step plan? Yes, but more importantly, as a member of the team, what's my exact role to play? What steps am I responsible for? What decisions do I have authority to make? And so when you think about this and you think about the work that's being done right now in digital workplace, personalization and targeting of information is a key tool that helps us to be able to build clarity. If I'm seeing everything out of the fire hose, it's harder for me to gain clarity than it is if I'm seeing just those things that are important to me. And finally, teamwork. Teamwork, it's interesting. We've got tons of tools, some of which we'll talk about today, that help us to be able to collaborate effectively within our teams. But strangely enough, teamwork can be negatively impacted by our digital world. An overabundance of tools can create confusion and can create different rooms where people are talking to each other in silos instead of connecting across silos. Strong governance is the key, and the advice we give to our digital workplace teams in this space, in the idea of deciding on a set of tools that you're going to make available to your teams, and what the rules are for each specific tool. So that brings me to my biggest takeaway. As I was doing this particular research paper, I think my biggest takeaway on digital employee experience is that despite the difference in complexity between the tools of the Craftsman era, the hammer and the forge, and the tools of today, with today's collaboration tools and all of the tools that we can make available to our employees today, at the end of the day, the concept is the same. The tools we have at our disposal have an outsized impact on how we view the experience that we have at work, which is why it's so important, and to your credit that all of you have decided to join in today. I think we've got a fantastic program ahead of us. Ted, anything that you'd like to open up to or take from there?
Well, I think we've got a couple of questions ready for you, but I just want to reiterate that we are looking at things, our goal here is to look at things from different perspectives. And we started with you, Kevin, because you bring in a very people-centric lens to this topic. And I think it's always important to realize, even when we're talking about technology and we get all caught up in this kind and that kind and this feature and capabilities, technology exists to serve people. And we've got to always keep that context in mind. And so it's good to start off this 2 days of discussion really focused on people from the start. We will probably verge deeply into technology as we go, but we want to keep that kind of in the back of our minds, how it's always people that we're really trying to serve and to make the technology work for. So Nicole, if you got any questions lined up here?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions that have been sent. So one of them is, if we think of an organization with a high performing employee experience, in your opinion, Kevin, roughly what percentage of that would be down to the digital tools available? Or is it, is it the whole experience and digital is only a small part of that, or a bigger part? What do you think?
Well, I think for most organizations, the easy answer on this is that the employee experience is made up of the marriage between the physical and the digital experience. And so the physical location, whether it be at home or in an actual workplace, and the digital experience, which is all of the tools, everything that happens behind the screen, they really work together in order to be able to create that employee experience. I think a case could be made that over the last 3 months, the role of digital has increased. If it was 50-50 before, it could be 70-30 now. The digital tools have taken on an outsized kind of impact on that. And the only caveat I'd put in there is that if you have the greatest physical tool set or digital tool set in the world, but you are working from the kitchen table at home and the kids are running around and the cat is running across the desk, as so often happens, that still has an impact, and it still does create either a great experience or one that is not so much. So they still work together.
Okay, thanks very much, Kevin. We've got another question that sort of comes on the back of that, really. So Gillian's asking, is there any advice on trying to enact tools governance where there was previously none? So she's dealing with an abundance of shiny object syndrome. We've all been there, really, and a bit of mutiny. And is there ways of bringing that back? I mean, we'll probably talk about that on and off throughout the day, I think, or throughout the 2 days. Go ahead.
Yep. Before I was with the Digital Workplace Group, I was a digital workplace practitioner and responsible for tool governance. And I feel your pain because so many of the times when we have new tools coming in, they come in organically. And they come in organically because there were certain people across the organization, certain teams that needed a particular capability that they found outside of our organization. Really, there's 2 pieces of advice I can give you, and one is that the way to be able to get to control of it is to involve those teams that are using those tools that have come in through the back door, and so and help them to understand the power of having us all working off of the same tool set, even if the tool set isn't best of class for their particular use, but does the job. So it's not an easy conversation. However, if you can sell the idea of getting everyone into the same room, it's a plus. And it doesn't have to be, second thing is it doesn't have to be one room. You don't all have to be on one tool. You can have different tools in order to be able to meet different needs. But you want to keep that number as small as possible. And you want to set up specific, well-known, well-communicated rules around when you use which tool. Best way to do that, always do it with the support and the involvement of those teams that are most intimately impacted by it. There is a third piece of advice, and the third piece of advice is specifically for the digital workplace team. And that is, the more that you can stay ahead of what it is that people are needing and give people a voice to be able to tell you what they need, the more you can be involved in selecting what those tools are and not having them come in the back door. So that's what I saw from my experience. Every organization is different. I hope that's a little bit of help anyway.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that, Kevin. It's always quite tricky conversations to have, and I know organizations where they've like told the people that are bringing in these shiny tools and said that they would evaluate them corporately, because it's always good to see what's out there, and it sort of lets them be heard, and because there might be a tool on the market now which does do the job better as well, so it can always go through that
Absolutely.
due diligence
Sometimes
process.
one of those tools that come in the back door will end up being your next big productivity enhancer, right?
Yep.
Welcome them from wherever they come.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks very much. Thanks for that input, Kevin. That's brilliant.